Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. And for those, we are streaming now. So those of you who are streaming, we're glad that you're here too. Before I usually start every forum I do by asking, does anyone have anything that's on their heart or mind that they want to make sure that we cover? Or you trust me to get through it all? Linda Binney. Landscaping, we can talk about landscaping. Do you want me to talk about that right now, John? Landscaping? So we have again engaged Ellen Getz, who has done our landscaping for the parish hall and redoing stuff for the healing garden, the children's garden, and then following the hurricanes. So she has put together her landscape plan. The trees around the church, and I don't know how much you all know about which trees are which, so forgive me. The two ficus trees in front, some people think they're banyans, but they're not, they're ficus trees. Those will save. And you'll see in the rendering in a little bit that there'll be a wall to protect the roots, a little retaining wall. You all will see that. When you go from those trees back towards the labyrinth, the next set of trees that you hit are ficus trees again, but they're a hedge in front of the wall. And they were looking and are looking very scraggly. But I didn't want to spend money, because I have Scottish roots, on replacing those right now. We're waiting. What will be there will be liriope, which is a smaller, a healthier plant that can survive the shady areas there. And then if you go on the other side of the front wall, the next trees you'll hit are two black olive trees. Those were planted, and I don't know when. They're not in the original view of the church that I've seen, but they've grown to be too big, and those will be removed. And we won't put anything in their place for now. We found that those trees rub against the roof, and they're a maintenance challenge. They just got too big for that space. And also, the ficus trees have gotten so big that they really frame the building beautifully without the need for those two black olives. If you keep on going back, the next trees you'll hit are the hedges for the east and west churchyard. Those are portocarpus. Those will remain. We're trying to save those for as long as we can during construction, so that when people go and visit their loved ones in the memorial gardens, that area will be, as much as we can, have that same serene, peaceful feeling with the green around the grass itself. Keep on going back. You'll be next to the church this time, and you'll have areca palms that are there. Those will be removed, and we have plans for different kind of palms that will be there. You probably won't notice a difference. I couldn't tell the difference, really. But Ellen says the trunks are much more beautiful and fun on the new kind of palms. Those 4 palms that are on each side of the transept, they're really quite old, and Ellen basically looked at them and said, I haven't seen palms that sort of old. But they are diseased. They have the whatever the fungus is that gets on palms, and then it gets in the dirt, and that's bad. But because the dirt will be up 2 feet in those areas, we can replant palms in those areas. Going back further, you'll hit the hedge, which is clusia, all around the labyrinth. That will still be clusia. We'll see how much of the hedge we can retain. That will be a lot of the staging area for all the build. So that area will be cleaned out so trucks and stuff can get back there. Then you'll see another ficus tree on the east side of the labyrinth area. That will be retained. And then right beyond that is a black olive, which will be removed. Again, it's too crowded with the ficus. And black olives are also wrecking our benches because of the little casings or seedlings or whatever that falls on them. The shady lady, which is a type of black olive, around the west side of the labyrinth courtyard. Those will be removed. There are too many of them, really. And what will go in its place is a native tree, the gumbo limbo, which we have some out here on the waterfront as well. And so what Ellen has done is a beautiful, simple planting, which is what we like with our simple architecture. Space so it can grow well, native varieties, and also mirroring parish hall side to church side as well. That was a long... I've been working on that last week. Yes, what's something else?
Memorial Garden.
Say that again?
What's going to happen to the Memorial Garden?
What's going to happen to the Memorial Garden? So the Memorial Garden, first of all, during construction, there will be scaffolding walls on the east and west side of both churchyards. And that's where the hedge will be in the middle of those 3-foot wide scaffolding areas. And then there will be trusses or rafters that go across east to west so that there can be a netting that goes on top that will prevent any construction, anything from falling on the churchyard while we're retiring the building and while we're replicating it. That will also, though, be rain permeable, sun permeable, because we want the grass and the hedges to continue to be vibrant. So we'll have temporary irrigation in there as well. There'll be entrances to both memorial gardens on the street side of things. So we're not going to let you go walk in the middle of the construction project, but you can have access through sort of being on the street and walking in. As the building goes up and then as all of the grading happens, that's when the churchyards will be raised up. And the way that that's going to happen is there'll be walls around portions of it, and then the grave markers, if you all are familiar with those will go up 2 feet. And then after that happens, we will consecrate earth, and that will then be put on top of the grass, and then new grass on top of the consecrated earth. So the grave sites will not be disturbed in any sort of way. They'll just be a little bit lower than the new grade. And then after that, new hedge will probably go in, and it will look the same, but just 2 feet higher. And you all might have read in the bulletin today that the West Church Yard monument or cross was deteriorating. That cross is now in the family room. You can always look at it there. And the Wisnans gave a new cross that is in the middle of being installed. So we're actually installing that at the higher level for now. So it'll look really tall for a little while, but then it will look just like the east side. It's a beautiful cross. Linda.
What will happen to funerals during the construction process?
So all of our liturgies will be in here.
But I mean, like burials.
So the churchyards will continue to be in use, right? So committals will be able to be done in those churchyards, just like they always have. You'll just have to go in a different way. And you can't be 10 feet tall because the ceiling is only 10 feet tall. Weddings. I've only so far one person has asked for a wedding, a longtime parishioner who grew up here, and she's fine being in the parish hall for now. But I'll offer to go do weddings on the beach, which normally I don't like doing. It's hot with all those robes on. But if someone wants a beach wedding, I'll do that. If someone wants to get married on the waterfront, we'll do that. But this will be our sacred space for Sunday worship, for funerals, for everything that we regularly do will be in here. And for that time, we'll have the organ that's over across the way. I know many of you may not remember, but that's a temporary organ. It's called, in organist language, a toaster. So it basically just roll over here. And then we'll mount the speakers up on the wall. So, and then the sound will be adjusted. So you'll have a worship experience, a music experience that is very similar to what you experience every Sunday. Okay, now I'm going to get into my prepared remarks. Good morning. Although we've entered a new season of talking about our raised and resilient church, this has been on our minds for quite some time. We began all of this work last October with a forum where we discussed Hurricane Milton. Does anyone remember that? $600,000 of damage with that one to our church. Of course, Ian was $1.6 million, for a total of $2.2 million spent on hurricane damage these past 4 years. That's a big hit. In that forum last year in October, we ended with the question, what about the next 75 years and the storms to come? So to date, here on campus, what have we done? The rectory has been raised to code height. The parish hall where you're sitting right now is at code height. And we've explored options to raise the Sunday school classrooms. And then we have a developed strategic plan for 2-story offices with multi-use space underneath, perhaps incorporating the church mouse. But then I asked, what about the church itself? And in that forum, there was a call for a committee to think about and investigate any and all options, creative, out of the box, anything that we could think of. That was the committee's job to think of. And in the 9 o'clock service, I mentioned how grateful I am to so many of you, all of you, for all that you do at this church to make it vibrant. And I'm so thankful for that committee as well. That was Mick Moore and Casey Weidmiller chairing it. They have been at this church since their adolescence, both lawyers, and of course the Moores have property on the beach itself. With Connie Fuller, our junior warden, who's an attorney, Mark Borelli, a construction contractor, John Ike, an engineer and also building committee chair for this building, David Feit with experience in condos and beach and permitting and planning review board, Helene McGill, our treasurer, always need a treasurer around to talk about money. And then Mike Moore, who has been here in Naples for many, many years, and of course Kim McQueen, our parish administrator. They brought together an extraordinary blend of gifts: lawyers, property owners, business leaders, accountants, engineers, and contractors, each offering their experience, and each one also listening to you all. When we set up the email address, many of you said, my condo's doing this, my neighborhood's doing this. So all of that input was taken in and listened to and thought about. But in addition to all of their spiritual gifts, each one brought their faith story to the mix. Every member's faith journey is rooted in our sacred space. All of those committee members, they've worshiped here through every season, celebrating weddings and baptisms. They've mourned at funerals with loved ones in the West Churchyard. And their decisions were shaped not only by skill, but by love. Love for God and love of this parish family and all of you and all of the saints who will come in generations to follow. Their recommendation, received and unanimously approved by the vestry, was to investigate a raised and resilient church. And we've had this rendering around in the parish hall since May. That recommendation and previous forums those continue to be on our website. There was a snowbird who was just back for the first time and wondering, where can I find all this information? He was excited to go to the website and learn more. Of course, we've continued the conversation, the Trinitarian articles, the Sunday bulletins, calls for you all to come in for a cup of coffee. And then the vestry empowered the building committee to follow up on the feasibility of the raised and resilient church. So I would like to recognize the committee members. Like those on the Storm Resilience Committee, an extraordinarily wonderful blend of gifts: lawyers, property owners, business leaders, accountants, engineers, and contractors. John Ike, Chair; Mark Borelli, Jay Morgeson, Catherine Morgan, Mark Goebel, Helene McGill, Kim McQueen. I think I got everybody. And then, of course, along with them is our project team, Bruce Gilbert of D. Garrett, and Will and Jan Ward of McWard Architects. That's the same team who put this building up together. And, you know, all of those building committee members, they have their faith journey here too. But Bruce and Jan and Will, it's not just a business transaction for them. And they'll share more about that. But the day after Ian, Jan and Will were here checking on us. And the Saturday after Ian, Bruce Gilbert was here shaking my hand saying, "Don't worry." So a wonderful group gathered together, and I just want you all to recognize and know about them. Let's pray. The Lord be with you. Almighty God, we find our strength in you and pray that you would guide us as we seek to strengthen this church for future generations, granting us wisdom and generosity. Bless all who support this endeavor as they give their best observations and gifts. Unite us in purpose that this space may reflect your love and continue to be a place of holiness as we walk our lives with one another and you. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So now I'm done working. John's going to come up and take us away. We can clap for him.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. Really appreciate your interest. I'd just like to point out to you that Father Edward's rendition of the landscaping is illustrative of the level of detail that he understands this project. So he's right in there covering every detail and making sure that it's following the mission that we've established, and we really appreciate that. John's
taller than me. Just wait for a second,
Oh,
John.
move that up a little bit.
Yep. There you go.
Great. Father Edward mentioned the Storm Resilience Committee, and they gave the building committee a mission, and it is pretty simple. Recreate our church at a higher elevation to eliminate or mitigate the impacts of tropical storms. So there's a couple operative words there, recreate. And recreate, the way we interpret that on the building committee is that the new church will look and feel the same as the current church with respect to dimensions, scale, materials, color, and furnishings. And we'll cover more on that later, and Jan Ward is going to help us with that part of the presentation. So we're going to recreate it. It'll look and feel the same, but it will be at a higher elevation. So the current finished floor elevation, and I may call it FFE as an acronym, but the FFE currently is 5 feet. It's pretty low. Some of these recent storms, well, we know what happened. We see the photographs, and we've experienced it. The proposed FFE is 9 feet, so that's 4 feet higher. That's about the elevation here. And that higher elevation would have put us above any floods in the memory of church members, including Polly. We think Donna, which did flood the church, was about the same elevation as Ian. So the 4 feet will place us above that. You know, some people say, well, if 4 feet is good, why not 6 or 7 feet? There's practical limitations. The road around the church and the sidewalks, we have to, from whatever elevation the church is, we have to be able to get down to that in a smooth transition. So the higher you go, perhaps a little more insurance against flooding, but then the construction, the aesthetics, et cetera, all become more challenging. There's another reason too, though, and the city has a height restriction. And if we were to go higher than 4 feet, then we could not maintain the same dimensions and proportions of the church. It would have to be squashed because that roof line, I believe, Will can back me up, but I think it's 36 feet is the height. So 4 feet is the number that we've established to go higher. That'll put us at elevation 9. We also plan to flood-proof the lower 4 feet of the church. So the building materials in the lower 4 feet will be flood-proofed. We will also provide these zero flood barriers as we are using here in this side of the street to prevent the intrusion of floodwaters. Moreover, the foundation that will be built will be such that if the most dire projections of sea level rise come to pass, that the church could be elevated, lifted without a great deal of problems in the future. That's way down the road, and hopefully that's not necessary. But there's several backups, so I feel very good about that. Project team, the owner, of course, is Trinity-by-the-Cove. The vestry serves as kind of the board of directors for our congregation, and the vestry has delegated responsibility to the building committee for the day-to-day operations of the project. The vestry, though, still retains ultimate responsibility for dollar commitments and overall the go, no-go of the whole project. A little more on that later. The architect is Will and Jan Ward, and we're so delighted to have them on the team. Initially, Will indicated he maybe wasn't sure he could take on the project, and then he changed his mind, and I think Father and Edward and I had a couple high fives because this was a very successful project. This project, I love to brag about it. It was a lot of hard work, but this project was done during COVID. It was started the Tuesday after Easter, and Father Edward performed a service here on Christmas Eve. The cost was about $7 million, and the change orders were infinitesimal. And a lot of that, in fact, most of that owes to these two architects here, as well as our construction manager. So, and the reason that worked so well is that we had extensive meetings before that project kicked off. We met for a year, routinely working through details. And that's what we're doing now on the building committee. Some of these meetings are tedious. You know, we're getting into details about elevations and this and that, but it's going to pay off, you know, once construction starts, because we will have worked out those naughty little details. Dee Garrett's the construction manager. We also have a number of sub-consultants on the project. I won't detail all those. Some of them work for the architect, typically the ones within the building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, work under the architect, and then others outside of the building, with one exception, are retained directly by the church. But all work together under the leadership of the architect. The workings of the building committee. Father Edward mentioned the members of the building committee. I won't go through that again. But we also have some special topic advisors. We have some great expertise in this church with respect to interior design, lighting, permitting, acoustics, and we will not hesitate, and we have called upon these people to help us with certain decisions where that expertise exists. We meet once a month. We meet on the third Thursday of the month, and we started meeting in May, so we've had 5 meetings of the building committee. They've all been super productive. And typically the way it works is that the architect will prepare some drawings. We started first with the site plan, and he'll bring that preliminary drawing to the building committee, and he'll kind of explain it, and then we'll hash it over. We'll talk about it, the pros and the cons. Gee, is this wide enough for people to congregate outside the door? What about this? What about that? Memorial gardens have played a huge role in all of our conversations, and will continue to. We reach a consensus within the building committee, and then the architect goes back and makes revisions to those drawings, and eventually those become finalized. During the design phase of the project, the architect kind of takes the lead in the building committee meetings, but that'll change. Once we move to construction, assuming we do go forward, the construction manager will be more in charge of the operations. So we've made great progress in design. The design is broken down into 3 different parts: schematic design, design development, and construction documents. Schematic design is 100% complete. That's kind of where the concept is developed, and and a consensus built around the general concept. Well, we knew what we wanted. We wanted kind of the same thing, only 4 feet higher. So schematic design wasn't terribly challenging. But now we're well into the design development phase, and we're about 40% complete with that. That's when the floor plans get developed. The elevations kind of get finalized. The site plan is pretty much refined. And then the third phase is construction documents. And that's where the architect really details the connections and the materials and et cetera, and all of the interior finishes. That's only about 5% complete. But overall, I'd say the design process is about 40% complete. Okay, now I would like to talk about the changes. We said we're going to recreate the church. Well, for practical reasons, it can't be done. Oh, thank you. We are going to recreate the church. And just about everything is going to remain the same. There's a hand up in the back. Yes, sir.
I assume what we're doing here today is just getting a briefing on what's going to be happening.
Right.
So this is not an audience input.
No, we have, first of all, if it's a burning question, I'll take it now.
What's that?
If you wouldn't mind, we do have some time set aside.
I read the report, so I don't need to be here if you're just going to tell me what it says. Okay. I do have some comments, though, since I did read a report.
Could I ask you to hold the comments till I finish, and you will be the first person we call upon.
Okay.
Okay? Let's see, what time is it? 10:44. Okay. I think people are interested in what's going to change. I think that's very important, and that's not in the report. Changes from the current that you will see that are visible are, there's going to be steps and railings to accommodate the change in design. And there will be a retaining wall because we have to get from the grade of 9 feet, the church finished floor, down to essentially 4 feet at the street. So the way to do that is a little bit of sloping and also a retaining wall. But that's how we do it, and I think fairly gracefully. That's a low retaining wall. So that's one visible change. The memorial gardens will be elevated by 2 feet. The restroom and usher's closet will be flipped. They're in the narthex, so they'll be flipped with the restroom on the right, restroom on the left, usher's closet on the right. The church floor will have a different appearance. We haven't really gotten to that yet, but I doubt if we can replicate exactly what we have there. And there'll be a new organ. So those are all visible changes. There'll be some changes that are less visible. There's going to be building systems that will not be all that noticeable, but the windows will be impact resistant, which they are not now. The structure is going to be designed to withstand wind gusts of 150 miles an hour, backup generator, modern HVAC, audiovisual, fire, smoke, and theft and security systems, all new. They are going to operate in the background. As you worship and appreciate the church, they will be there, but they won't be obvious to you. I was going to talk a little bit about acoustics. I'm not going to go into detail. Acoustics, we've paid a lot of attention to. The spoken word, choral, and organ are all going to be as good or better than they currently are, and accommodations for the hearing impaired will be much improved than using Bluetooth technology. I would like to ask Will to come up and talk a little bit about permitting and where we stand in the permitting process.
Good morning. I'm Will Ward of McWard Architects, and I'm pleased to be here. I think John covered everything about the building, the design. Normally, I'd be up here trying to explain to you what the new church or the new facility is going to look like. But we all know what it's going to look like. My job is to make that happen. We have to go through permitting, as John mentioned. And so the first thing you always have to do in the city of Naples is a little bit different than the county. We have to submit a site plan. and that has more to do with the civil engineering, landscaping, et cetera. Once we submit the site plan, which should happen relatively soon, we can then apply for our conditional use permit, our DRB permit, and then finally, next spring, we will apply for a building permit and then schedule the construction to be completed in later part of 2027, I think is the schedule right now. So we do have some permitting issues. It's not just the building, it's the site, it's conditional use because, we're not in a zoning classification that's dictated. We're in a conditional use zoning. And so we have to go through that process. We did that on the parish hall. We had to do the same thing and explain to the city exactly, how the facilities, I say facilities, all work together. And so that will happen probably beginning of the year, I would imagine, or later part of this year, we start that process. And so that's really the permitting issue. And afterwards, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Janet, please go forward.
Good morning. I'm Janice McBride Ward. A lot of you knew my parents, Lori and Clyde McBride. Trinity has been near and dear to our family for a very long time, and actually the mentors of Will and I when we were first practicing architecture were Bob and Eleanor Cosgrove, who had a major role in the last church renovation here at Trinity. And Eleanor actually gave me some of her books on architecture. So my job, which is daunting, and one of the reasons we hesitated to say yes, is to make sure that we don't lose the special quality of Trinity-by-the-Cove, the simplicity, that it's just the elegance of it just being what it is, which is a beautiful place to worship without a lot of extraneous stuff. So you can focus. It's a place where you feel at peace, and my parents are now in the East Churchyard, so making sure that is protected and restored to the best of our ability is also a daunting task, but one that we feel after prayer and consultation we would like to undertake for you, and we're honored to be asked to do that, just as we were to work on this parish hall, which I especially love looking out these windows and seeing the waterfront. We pictured this for, I don't know, since 2012, actually. We didn't get to break ground until 2019, and it was a really exciting experience. And one of my parents' last experiences here were walking through the construction site when it was still muddy to see the view once we had the windows framed up. And so, that kind of excitement is what we hope to recreate here. I know it's a little bit scary because the place is so special, but that is our job, is to make sure that we preserve that special quality, and we will work tirelessly to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Will and Jan. I will wrap it up with cost and schedule. We anticipate a cost update in about 1 month, and that will come from the construction manager based on quotes that he receives from some of the major sub-consultants. So it'll be a far more improved than the version we have now. We are still working with the version we have now, which is kind of a rough estimate, and we're estimating roughly $5 million construction, and we're saying $10 million total project cost. Those are subject to revision, but right now they're the best numbers that we've got. Project remains on track for construction starting in early fall of next year and completion by the end of 2027. There are several checkpoints built in along the way, 3 as a matter of fact. November 1st, once this new cost estimate comes out, if we're totally surprised and the project seems to be infeasible, then we probably got a decision to make. February 1st will be another one. That'll be when the final design will just about be completed, and we'll have a much better cost update. We'll also have a better feel for the funding of the project And there will be a campaign that kicks off in early January to promote the funding for this project. So that's a key ingredient for the feasibility of it. The final checkpoint will be about August 1st of next year. If all the pieces come together smoothly, it'll be a go. But being prudent stewards, if things aren't what they should be, we'll call a halt. The good news is that even if that happens, all of the work that we've done will still be usable. So if we had to delay the project for 5 years or so, for whatever conditions, we could then reactivate it and move forward. So I think we're being prudent in our whole approach. That's really all I have to say. The gentleman that had a statement to make appears to have left, but I will open it up to any other discussion, and I'll refer the question accordingly.
I just wanted to ask when you think you'll have a specific budget?
A specific budget?
Yeah.
I think November 1st,
You will?
we're going to have a better budget, and then February 1st, we'll have an even better budget. So it is an iterative process.
Okay. Thank you.
The expression raise and rebuild, raising can mean two things. Are we raising the church or are we taking it down totally?
We are taking the church down. The church, first of all, we're going to retain as much interior and exterior fixtures as is feasible, but the church will be demolished. I hate to use that term. The church will be taken down. The site will be raised 4 feet, and then a brand new church will be constructed, will be recreated there, and then those fixtures that were removed will be reassembled and reattached.
John,
Yeah.
my question has to do with the permitting process. So Will, you indicated there were like 3 steps of permitting. Is there any reason to doubt that after we get the first, we wouldn't get the second, we wouldn't get the third? I mean, how does that work?
Well, they're all different levels of one overall permit.
Okay.
There are, as you mentioned, 3 different levels, but it's really all one permitting process. And so we start with a site plan. We don't really see any complications with that. You know, we're really, it's a known product. You know, we know what we're doing by putting back exactly. So there's really no guesswork from anybody other than, you know, meeting current codes. You know, the codes have changed over the last 50, 60 years. And so some of that will be implemented into the new facility. And so, but I don't see any real struggle or complications with the permitting process. It just takes time.
Will we be able to save the cast iron bells and reinstall them?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Will we be able to save the cast iron bells that were installed a few years ago and reinstall them on the new structure? The bells.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, they will be removed. One of the first parts of the project will be to remove those, store those, do any refurbishing as might be necessary, and they will be then lifted back into place. Absolutely. Yes, question in the back.
Thank you. Better use the microphone. Tear down versus raising the church. I know the city's seen various residential applications go through to raise residential properties. Why was the decision to tear down and not raise taken out of interest? Thank you.
That's a very good question. It's a common question. We've had 2 meetings with probably the most prominent local structural mover contractor who elevates structures around the region. And we became educated in the process. Long story short, it would take about $2 million to elevate. It is feasible to elevate that church, hydraulically to raise it. It's going to cost at least $2 million to do that and to put a foundation under it. And at that point, we've got pretty much what we have now, only 4 feet higher. Next thing you know, we have to install an organ, and there's $900,000 to $1 million worth of preparatory work for that organ that would be put in this older building, albeit now raised. And moreover, we would still have windows that are vulnerable, a steeple that could be vulnerable, and older building systems. And so if you add in all those things, by the time you add those things in, you're almost at the cost of a new structure. And so it was that sort of analysis and that consideration that led to the decision to recreate at a higher elevation. Admittedly, there are cheaper ways. If our only objective was to prevent flooding, there were less expensive ways to do this. But when I say we, I was on the Resilience Committee, we looked at the future and thought, especially that $1 million investment into the old building just to prepare for the organ, we would much rather put that to a recreated church. So those were the main considerations. Yes?
I'm curious about if there's a communication plan in place or any thought given to communicating with our immediate neighbors and minimizing the impact on the neighborhood.
Father Edward, if you could address that.
Sure. The same thing that we did with the parish hall. So I've already sent letters to the neighbors, and then as things progress, I offer to walk them around and show them everything. Most of the neighborhood is very aware because we've been letting the Port Royal Club use our space while they had their clubhouse zapped by the hurricane too. So they walk into their meetings here and they see all of our renderings. So in terms of a plan, yes, we share with everybody as we go. I share as quickly as I can because what we don't like in church is gossip, right? So what we want to do is share what's going on. It's a transparent situation, right? We want to share everything that we know when we know it. So, and that's where, we still have that email, and you all always are welcome to come and talk to me if you have any questions about anything. Is that helpful? Did I answer your question? Yeah.
In talking about communication, have you had communications with all of the people in the city so they know what's going on, so that when you get into the permitting process, you possibly have an easier time?
Will, you want me to answer that? Why don't you come answer that?
Yes, we have contacted the city initially. I've talked to the planning department to let them know what we have planned, and that's where we got the stages for the total permit, including the conditional use, et cetera. They're looking in their files to see what they have on record for the conditional use, as well as we have to look that up. And as I said, the site plan will be the first step. We'll be meeting with the city, and then more detailed about, we have several issues about the new sanctuary that once we get through the site plan and before we go into the DRB, we'll be having scheduled meetings with the city just to discuss the plans for the church.
I just elaborate by saying our project team, so McWard Architects and D. Garrett Construction, they're known quotients here in Naples, right? I mean, they've been around, I wouldn't say ages. That would not be nice, but they're known for good buildings. They're known for following the rules and working with the city. So, that's one of the great things about having that team. And John, as chair of the building committee, and me as your rector, we've been through permitting things before with this building. If you ever want to hear a great story, I tell a great story about the dock and the permitting for that. So it's a process, and this is where John is great. He says, it's a process that you work through, but it's a great team working on it, and everything to make it move smoothly is being done.
What's your best estimate for the end date?
The best estimate for the end date is 12 to 14 months after the start date. So end of 2027. So we're hoping that we're one Christmas, one Easter here, one season here, then back in the church. But, you know, again, it's the work that's being done now is the critical part. If all of the plans and the design is well thought out and we don't have any changes, that allows the contractor to get to work. Some of you all may not know that I was a commercial litigator, fidelity and surety and bankruptcy. So construction projects that went wrong is what I worked on when I practiced law. So I know what owners shouldn't do, right? So we're not going to get in the way. We're going to get what we need now, and then we're going to let the contractor do his work. Any other questions? Yes. Hold on one second. Let the microphone come.
I think we're all sensitive to inflation. What steps are or can be taken to hedge against future inflation as it affects the building costs?
Helene's probably the better person to ask that. But I mean, one of the things that we're experiencing, this is true with the Oregon project, we locked in our pricing, and we know that, and that's where the contract with DCARET will lock in a lot of the pricing, and then we're competitive bids in just about everything as well. So the other piece that Trinity has experienced is some people have wanted to give immediately. The Oregon is the example. We've raised, what's the number that we have in the bank? Helene, is Helene here? No. We have a couple $1 million just sitting there earning interest, right? So we're putting all of the cash that we have on hand to work in conservative instruments, T-bills, CDs, stuff like that. So we're doing the best we can. But if you have any ideas, come and talk to me. You all haven't asked about money. Come on. Who's not? Yeah.
I live in the wilderness, and you guys have got a great team. They built our clubhouse, and I watched them from start to finish, planning, finishing. Turned out beautiful and no glitches.
Yeah, it's a really great team. Chuck, his microphone is coming. Remember, there are people online too. I know there's a back that we owe you all some lights up there to make it front lit. Yeah, Chuck.
Are you aware of any city-owned property infrastructure changes that will have to be made or need to be made by the city to support whatever engineering changes, stuff behind the scenes are in place that would then impact or potentially impact the surroundings?
City changes. I don't think any city changes. I guess the way I would answer that, and if I don't get it right, will come correct me. It's just there are regulations that we'll have to follow, so the church will have to be updated. One example is drainage. So we'll have to have a retaining tank buried underneath the ground over on the front east side, where that big patch of grass is. So that actually the drainage in the area should get better. Some of you all probably haven't seen, they're always trying to clean out this city drain over here. The other one of the changes will be the electrical panel and access from this side of the street to the other and how that works out. So there's some regulations and changes, but I think that answers your question, yes?
Yeah, that would impact.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Polly Butler.
So, okay, tell us about the money.
Tell us about the money. So you'll see this, you've seen this in the Trinitarian, which is we're moving forward as if we're going to do this, right? I mean, we have the go, no-go dates is what John talks about, and one of those does relate to money. Are you all going to want to fund this project? I've been in talks with potential major donors who can lead us and give us a head start on all of this. That sort of is all coming together at the same time as the design and the permitting and everything else. One of the key differences for me in managing this project versus this hall project was we had the plans, we had the design, we had a pretty good number, turned out to be low, but I learned a lot from that, which is why we still are at a high number. We got to plan the fundraising a little bit more deliberately than with the church, this church project, because our timeline does also relate to the organ. The organ is still scheduled to be in at the same time it was when we bought the organ, right? It just, the timeline, because that organ builder is so popular, we were that far in line. So, we're trying to work all the pieces together. The other thing is, we made this decision in May, and that's like the worst time to fundraise in Naples, right? Everybody leaves and they focus on things going on up north. That's not to say that, we don't have some good fun gifts coming in and planned. And those on Vestry, the books are open, so you've already seen probably like $600,000 come in just initial gifts, because some people want to give that gift this year for tax reasons or stock market reasons or whatever. And you'll see in the stewardship information that comes out in October, very clear we're focusing on annual fund in October. We need to fund our mission and ministry day to day, but look to January when we kick off a capital campaign. And by then we'll have a pretty good idea on price. So one of the things in raising the money is I don't want us to come in way high, because that doesn't seem fair to me, right? We want you all to give what this project's going to cost, not a nickel less, not a nickel more. So that's the money piece. But if you do want to give, and so many of you all plan well in advance, so you can plan to give right now or by year end to this project, and that money will be sitting there waiting to be spent. Right? Did I answer okay? Or were you expecting something else?
How long will the capital campaign last?
I am going to push you all. I'm going to push you all. You've done this before, and this was one of the observations that we had when we were making this decision. And it's one of the things that sort of stresses me out, which is I've picked your pockets for this and for the organ, and you all don't want me coming after you for capital projects all the time. I know that. This is a generational project, and it's not my fault. The parish hall was my fault. I pushed this. The organ in the church, not my fault. That was Mother Nature, right? So what I'm hoping that we can articulate is that this is a great opportunity to give to the next generation, right? It's not just about us anymore. And you all have seen me in these forums, which is this project has been hard for me because no one wants to tear down a church who's a priest. At least I don't know anybody. But the reality is that this church cannot continue its mission and ministry with a building that floods like this. You all have been gifted by a great staff and a pretty good rector as an administrator to get us through the storms. That won't always be. And so let's fix it now while we have the John Ikes and the Mike Moores and all of you all to put our heads together and get it done. Uh-oh, the hardest question of all.
It's not a question. So I'm going to implore and beg everyone who's here and listening to keep the building committee and the rector and the staff in your prayers. It means so much to me personally, I'm very selfish about that, but please keep them in your prayers weekly. Make it Edward, I'd love it if you'd write up a pretty one and we could all like print it out and have it. But just, it's really important that you keep praying for the building committee and for the staff and for the clergy and everybody, because it works. So that's all.
Virginia sees the weight on me, right? That's what she's getting at. Make sure to say a prayer for me that I don't get too stressed out and that I sleep well, And I don't gain weight, that's right. With the parish hall, I put on 30 pounds. We're not doing that again, folks. Anything else? And it will be, you all, I get emotional about stuff. We'll make this fun. It is and should be a celebration because we're doing something unique. The bishop knows that. I mean, when I told the bishop, I said, Bishop, this is the idea. We're going to retire the building and replicate it. He's like, that's pretty creative. And I would say, too, because the question has been come up, West and East Churchyard, the bishop is full on board with how we're handling Memorial Gardens. It is reverent and it is holy, and he's blessed us. I said, could you put that in writing? Yeah, so the letter's coming. Anything else for the good of the group? Let's pray. The Lord be with you. Dear Jesus, I give thanks for this parish family, for all of their spiritual gifts, for their love and care of one another, and for their love of you that transforms building projects into sacred ministries. We pray that you would bless our endeavor, all those involved in the planning, and those who will labor on site, that they might be kept safe and they may be kept sound and blessed each and every day. These prayers we offer through Jesus Christ our Lord. Go get them, everybody. Oh, and if anyone has any questions afterward, we're here. We can answer any of those one-on-one, whatever you'd like.